Pebble Mine has been proposed by the company Northern Dynasty Partnership. In Alaska, the mine is predicted to contain high amounts of copper and gold. 3 mines will be in operation. All 3 will be open-pit mines. The ore deposits contain a low amount of copper and gold. In order to extract the metals from the ore, the 3 mines will include a treatment plant and tailing ponds. The low-quality ores will produce an immense amount of contaminated water and will require a large area to operate. The mines will average out to 71.5 kilometers squared, excluding the space in between the mines. Calculations don't include 138 kilometers around each mine for transportation that will be paved road. An extension of the mine is not a part of the current proposal. The underground mine will be evaluated separately. Froth flotation will be used to extract the gold and copper. Pipes will then move the raw material to the designated area. Another set of pipes will transport the tainted water to the tailing ponds. Paved roads will be constructed around the mine in order for the metals to be transported by the trucks. The mines will require a building to house the froth facility, paved roads to transport the raw material, tailing ponds, pipelines containing the raw material and water, as well as offices for administrative purposes. NEPA, the National Environment Policy Act, the public's right to request an extensive report on the proposed project. They are able to request the information because the project will be constructed on federal land. The people of Bristol Bay have been educated and can continue to use NEPA as a way to review proposed mines and consult the community by reviewing the environmental impact. For years to come, the area will be exposed to contamination. Due to the tailing pond that will be there for over thousands of years, contamination of the water will first affect the salmon and other fish. Then the predators that rely on the fish will not have prey to hunt, leading to a lack of nutrient deposits on the soil to assist plants to grow. Over 4,000 acres of land will be occupied by the mine, normally inhabited by the wildlife. The barrier between species will affect the mating of terrestrial animals, thus not allowing the animals to properly reproduce and expand the gene pool. 6% of the population that fish are native to the land, while the rest of the fishers are visitors. The foreigners own boats, and despite the money not remaining in the area, tourists that come to fish yearly will no longer travel to the Bristol Bay area. The visitors will not return if there are no sockeye salmon. Tourists will also not be inclined to visit an area that is unsafe. If the mine remains without accidents, then tourism may still be affected. Permits to fish will be reduced because of the low quality reproduction of the sockeye salmon. The infrastructure will obstruct the natural flow of water from the watershed and streams. Water will be pumped from the surrounding area to be used in the process of extracting the metals. The reduction of water will restrain water from moving properly and remaining immobile in certain areas.
Pebble Mine poses a threat to the salmon run in Bristol Bay because of the toxic tailings that will be permanently stored behind the dams. It contains chemicals and heavy metals that will shatter the fishing industry if they were to ever leak, which has happened time and time again. The potential for a large-scale mining activity in the watershed has raised concerns about the sustainability of Bristol Bay's famous fisheries and the future of Alaska Native tribes in the watershed, who have maintained a salmon-based culture for at least 4,000 years. Because wildlife in Bristol Bay are immediately connected to and dependent on these and other fishes, changes in the fishery are expected to affect the abundance and the health of wildlife populations. Bristol Bay is not home to just sockeye salmon. The Bristol Bay watershed provides habitat for numerous animal species, including at least 29 fish species, more than 40 terrestrial animals, and more than 190 bird species. Many of these species are essential to the structure and function of the region's ecosystem, and the exceptional quality of the Bristol Bay watershed's fish populations can be attributed to several factors, the most important of which is the watershed's high quality, diverse aquatic habitats unaltered by human engineered structures and flow management controls. These factors all contribute to making Bristol Bay watershed a highly productive system. Based on the mine scenarios, the assessment defines mining-related stressors that would affect the Bristol Bay watershed's fish and consequently affect wildlife and human welfare. The scenarios include both routine operations and several potential failure scenarios. Effects on fish resulting from the habitat loss and modification would occur directly in the area of the mine activity and indirectly downstream because of the habitat destruction. Tailings are the waste materials produced during the ore processing. In the EPA scenarios, these wastes would be stored in tailings dams and impoundments. The probability of the tailings dam failure increases with the number of dams, and the tailings dam failures evaluated in the assessment would be expected to have severe direct and indirect effects on the aquatic resources, particularly the salmon. Spilled tailings would bury salmon habitat under meters, nearly the entire length of the North Fork Cotulla River valley downstream of the dam. Deposit tailings would degrade habitat quality for both the fish and the invertebrate that they eat. Based largely on the copper content, deposited tailings would also be toxic to the invertebrate. Deposited tailings would continue to erode from the North Fork Cotulla River and mainstream Cotulla River valleys. Suspension and redeposition of tailings would be expected to cause serious habitat degradation in the mainstream Cotulla River and downstream into the Molconta River. The affected streams would provide low quality spawning and rearing habitat for decades. Changes in the occurrence and abundance of salmon have the potential to change animal behavior and reduce wildlife population abundances. The mine footprints would be expected to have local effects on brown bears, wolves, bald eagles, and other wildlife that consume salmon due to reduced salmon abundance from the habitat loss and degradation in or immediately downstream from the mine footprints.
The periphery deposit contains an estimated 80.6 billion pounds of copper, 5.6 billion pounds of molybdenum, and 107.4 million ounces of gold. Since the deposit is periphery, instead of giant chunks of copper concentrate, it would be fine grains of sand sprinkled throughout the rock, making it contain less than 1% of copper by volume. This may be the reason why it must be an open pit project and why the volume of the pit must be 6,800 feet in length, 5,600 feet in width, and 1,970 feet in depth, though underground mining is still under consideration. This is also the reason why there would be an abundance of tailing. There are 2 tailing storage facilities, one unlined for 1.15 billion tons of bulk tails and lined for approximately 150 million tons of pyritic tailings. To extract gold, copper, and molybdenum, and open pit mining will take place. Before mining can start, the pit area must be dewatered, which takes about a year. Overburden mining will take place to remove the top layers of the pit area to get to the ore deposit. This would be stockpiled in a designated area southwest of the open pit. The end results would be 1.44 billion tons being mined and 1.3 billion tons being processed within the 20-year time span. How the materials would be processed once extracted would be that the deposits will be fed through a crushing plant, which will be the primary crushing phase. From there, it will be conveyed to a coarse ore stockpile, which is fed to a grinding plant. In the grinding plant, semi-autogenous grinding mill and ball mill reduces the material to a very fine sand. The next step is the bulk rougher flotation, which is where the mineralized rocks are separated from the non-mineralized rock. The non-mineralized rock is taken to the bulk tailing facility. As for the mineralized materials, they go through a second flotation process to separate the copper, gold, and molybdenum minerals from the pyritic minerals. The pyritic minerals are then sent to the pyritic tails facility. As for the other minerals, they are sent through one last flotation process to separate the copper and gold from the molybdenum. The gold and copper are then loaded into covered bulk shipping containers, and as for the molybdenum, would be packed into large bags, which are also loaded into bulk shipping containers. From there, they would be transported to the port. Since there would be no roads to the Pebble deposit, if the permits are approved, building a deepwater port would take place. This would be a transportation route to move equipment, workers, and supplies to and from the mine site. The infrastructures needed for the whole mining process would include a power source, transportation infrastructures, wastewater treatment facilities, and perpetual waste storage. Gold also being another big interest in Alaska, the Dolan Gold Project proposes to mine and produce an average of 1.3 million ounces of gold annually. With the approval of the Pebble Mine, the Dolan Gold Project will be soon to follow for approval. The approval of the Pebble Mine project would be beneficial for everyone, including the residents of Alaska. For example, copper is an essential for green energy and tech. Mining must increase to support green efforts. The approval of Pebble means job and revenue for Alaska, generating 1,000 to 2,000 direct and indirect Alaska jobs, 21 million average annual local government revenue, and 1 billion estimated state revenue over 20 years. EIS says project benefits include increased revenue, employment, and education. The EIS also says project's benefits will be most apparent in small rural communities closest to the mine site. The DEIS validates that there will be no harm to the area's water resources, including cyanide will not be used for gold recovery, strategic water release will benefit fish habitat, and no downstream effects post-closure. The EIS adds that the Pebbles approach will use the industry's best practices, including tailings storage facilities. TSF will be designed for maximum safety using proven world-class engineering. The DEIS affirms that the catastrophic failure is highly unlikely. Pyritic storage will be fully lined and will meet Alaska's Dam Safety Program standards. Pyritic TSF will be eliminated at the closure.